Well, happy Valentine's Day to everybody. Hope you're well and enjoying the evening so far, albeit it's only 20 to 6 in the evening. But thanks for clicking on the Vogan's European Outlook anyway for Tuesday. More very mild conditions across the northern half of the British Isles and really across the board. 10.8 Celsius is the current temperature here at Marfogan HQ this evening with a relatively brisk breeze coming out of the west at the 18.4 kilometers per hour. I know that says northeast, but it's actually incorrect. That is, but it certainly was a cool start. By the way, temperatures down to -7 at Aboyne this morning. Don't know where the temperature went down to at Braemar, but certainly -7 at Aboyne. We haven't seen that so far this month across the northern half of the UK. Temperatures at -1.3 at my nearby station at Tain, just up the road, and the temperature here at the house dropped to -2 Celsius, -4.6 at Loch Liscarnock here. We go down into England and Wales. Notice here relatively mild across Ireland and Northern Ireland this morning, but we had sub-freezing temperatures all the way down to the west of London, southwest of London this morning. And indeed, the temperatures as of recording very mild across a good part of Europe. Bearing in mind the time of the year, see temperatures +7 in northeast Poland, very mild. And of course, we've got some exceptionally mild conditions across parts of Iberia, France, into the Low Countries, 10, 11, 12 Celsius, both in Netherlands and in Belgium as of recording. A little bit chillier across central and southern Germany, if you notice here, but nothing to write home about for the time of the year, that's for sure. Looking at the current setup here, we've got, of course, high pressure that is centered over the central portion of Europe here, just pretty much on the Polish-Czech border. As you can see, got frontal system to the west of the UK. So, of course, with the fairly brisk winds coming in from the south, we've not only got dry conditions, but we've also got some Saharan dust coming off both Algeria and Morocco here, getting entrained within that southerly flow, and we're likely to see some fairly vivid sunsets this evening across some parts of the UK. Not so much here; it is rather cloudy. Um, but you can see here the air mass itself very mild as well, easily at 50 temperatures off the GFS, and we have got very little in the way of cold air to speak about across. Really, if you draw a line from central Poland westwards, it's all about the mild conditions, particularly so across northern Italy, through parts of the Alps, and indeed Germany. We've got these 850 temperatures well above the freezing mark. We've actually got an 850 of +10 Celsius here over the northeast corner of Italy, so quite noteworthy indeed. And as we play through the next day or two, what we're going to see is we're going to see an area of low pressure that's going to deepen, move across the top of the UK. We're going to see some gales for a period of time, I think Thursday and Friday. But generally speaking, there's nothing really to write home about. Once that feature, here comes the system itself. We'll look at that in a little bit more detail in a second. But you notice here that once that system clears through, yeah, there's a little bit of colder air coming in. But notice here that we've got a world of mild conditions building in from the central Atlantic around this area of high pressure. High pressure has just been incredibly persistent this February so far, and indeed it has been very very mild indeed. And I think for the majority of the rest of this month, I think it's going to be not just mild but also very dry indeed. There's going to be stations, I think, in the south of England that may not record any rainfall at all during the month of February. And I think it's Dan Harris, had made mention on his Twitter feed. The Met Office meteorologist made mention of the fact that it looks as if it was actually somebody else, I think, that made mention of February 1993 was actually drier than what we've seen so far. So certainly interesting when you add in historical perspective in terms of how dry it's been. And when you combine both dryness and mildness, it'll be interesting to see how this all pans out. I think February 2019 is probably a warmer month than what we've got. And of course, we had a temperature of 20 plus Celsius during February 2019. The first time a temperature was ever in excess of 20 Celsius during the December through February period on record for the UK. And It certainly that was, I believe that was just after the sudden stratospheric warming. So you can get two extremes with strat warmings, especially major sudden stratospheric warmings, and we'll look at that in the coming days. I haven't made mention an awful lot about that because I'm not going to continuously just say the same thing video after video. We will look at the Manjulian oscillation because that's looking quite interesting. We will also look at the period just at the end of the month because it's looking somewhat interesting. There is some models now starting to pick up on a little bit of a change taking place, and I think that's in reference to the Manjulian oscillation. But as you can see here, as we go through the weekend in the next week, high pressure remains dominant. We've got milder in place, very little in the way of change to come. Then you notice here, this is off the GFS operational one run. We've got multiple runs, multiple models. So chopping and changing will likely be inevitable. But this is interesting that by the time we reach around about 22nd, 23rd, this would be the absolute dream come true. Happened to turn 40 on the 23rd of February, and it certainly would be pretty exciting stuff if this was to happen. I know it's highly uncertain as to whether this will materialize or not. We could get the next model run that just basically shows this a completely different solution altogether. But you have that area of high pressure just shifting slightly to the west, opening the floodgates to Arctic air down through the UK, and then it's really as we progress towards the end of the month, you can start to see the changes taking place. We've got the area of high pressure to the west, building northwards all the way up into the north of Greenland, almost into the Arctic region, and you're emptying the Arctic down into the west, central, eastern, possibly western portion of Europe here by the time we reach the very end of the month. So this is certainly an interesting scenario, but we cannot guarantee that that's going to take place. I do believe that there is going to be a change taking place. I think March is looking quite cold, if I'm being honest with you. And looking at the Manjulian oscillation, this is the latest off the GFS ensemble, and you can see now that it has progressed through. It lingered for quite a long time in phase 3 over the Indian Ocean. Then it's progressed through the continental maritime region, so Indonesia, North Australia. It's progressed through here, and now we're starting to enter phase 6, 7, 8, possibly into 1. Folks, this is the region that you want to see the MJO going into, where the enhanced convection is over the western and central portion of the Pacific. That then starts to allow pressure to build up over the northern hemisphere, over the high latitude region. And I think the model is potentially starting to pick up on this eventual eastward progress of the MJO into the more favourable phases of 7, 8, and 1. And I think the operational model is picking up on that idea with the 850 temperature profile here. We're starting to see the build-up of pressure to the west and to the north. Now, the CFSV2 is looking quite interesting here. Notice again, no mention of the stratospheric warming situation because that is about to take place. You have to then allow 2 weeks after that event to take place to start to see any kind of tropospheric response, and there's still no guarantee we could have a slackening of the westerlies as the winds and the mean zonal winds over the stratosphere weaken, they then reverse. Then you got the downwell and the propagation of energy from stratosphere into the troposphere. All it takes is for that warm pool, because you need warm pools as well as you do cold pools to then get just discharged or displaced southwards. All it takes is for that block to set up almost over the UK, and you simply don't get any kind of Arctic outbreak. Maybe Europe floods with cold air, maybe North America does, but there's no guarantee. It depends on once that event takes place, should do over the next few days, then it's really the response through the troposphere, stratosphere into the troposphere, and then what happens to the 500 millibar pattern throughout the hemispheric setup here, that is going to be critical. So we are a long way off still from seeing any sort of beast from the east or any major cold pattern. I'm optimistic that March is going to be a cold month. February is playing out warmer than I initially thought. I hold up my hand to that. And it's certainly going to be very interesting to see what happens once this sudden stratospheric warming, this major sudden stratospheric warming, materializes. But the upcoming 7 days off the CFSV2 looks like this here. Very strong pressure versus the average here, week 1. And then as we go into week 2, you'll see here that the pressure remains strong over the majority of the British Isles here. So that reiterates the dry theme. Then it's as we go into the 27th of February through 6th of March period. Notice here that the pressure starts to lift north. That would essentially start to open the easterly door, so to speak. And then as we go from the period 6th of March through the 13th of March, we've got the build-up of pressure to the north, negative underneath here. So we'll watch this space. Looking at the precipitation here, you can see if we skip back to week 1, you can see the overall situation here as we go through the next couple of weeks here. So upcoming week, you can see here that we may have a little bit of wetter than normal conditions across the far northwest, west coast of Scotland, Outer Hebrides, for example. Week 2, you can see here, firmly drier than average here. And of course, that takes out to the 27th of February. Period between the 27th and the 6th of March, still drier than average. So we're remaining in this prolonged period of dryness here, and it takes us all the way out to the second half of March, and it looks as if we may have close to average conditions by this period, 20th of March through the 27th of March. Finally, looking at the 2-meter temperature anomalies here, looking back to week 1, very mild compared to average week 1, as you can see here. Into week 2, still warmer than average. Then we start to flirt with colder than average as that trough starts to kind of build underneath the ridge that starts to migrate northwards here. Doesn't look particularly cold, may I add, but still a long way out, of course. What would this be? Period 20 day 22 through 28. I think that's week 3, week 4. Yeah, we're talking about week 4, I think. So we'll watch this space. Certainly, I think the progression of the Magellan Oscillation is going to be helpful for a potential colder spell towards the very end of this month. But we'll wait and see, watch this space as we go forward here. So thanks for watching. As always, please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already done so. It's absolutely free, of course. Please like, please share with your friends and family, and hopefully I'll see you again tomorrow with more. Lots of interesting things ahead. Bye for now.